The lights didn't explode, the sirens didn't wail, the grid just exhaled. You're staring at a thermostat that has gone blank, and the silence in your neighborhood isn't peaceful. It's heavy. That's not a blown fuse down the street. That's not a temporary maintenance outage. That is the sound of the modern world stopping. And you have about 48 hours before the comfort of your suburban home starts to turn against you. Most survival videos assume you are a 25-year-old athlete, ready to strap on a 60-pound rucksack and disappear into the mountains to hunt elk. You aren't? You have a bad knee, a prescription that runs out in 2 weeks, and a single-story ranch house that depends entirely on electricity to keep you alive. Here is the brutal reality check the billionaires have already flown to their fortified bunkers in New Zealand. The government is securing key assets. You have your wits a pantry full of cans you can't open without a manual opener and a body that hasn't moved heavy loads in 20 years. Welcome to the long emergency for the people who can't run. This isn't about becoming a commando. This isn't a magic formula to turn back the clock on aging. This is the science of survival physiology applied to the reality of the American suburbs. Did you know that in a grid-down scenario, the simple act of manually flushing a toilet and hauling water for basic hygiene creates a calorie deficit so severe in the elderly that it mimics the effects of starvation within days? That is the invisible labor trap. We are going to walk through the 12 specific mistakes unfit preppers make that quietly trap them inside their own homes. These are decisions that determine whether you maintain your dignity when the systems fail, or whether you become a casualty of your own castle. So, I have a question for you, and be honest, if the water stops flowing today, what is the one physical ailment or limitation that scares you the most? Is it your back, your need for insulin, or just the inability to walk long distances? Leave a comment below. Your reality might just be the wake-up call someone else needs to hear. 1. The hoarding trap. Let's start with the most visible mistake, one that blurs the fine line between preparation and pathology. There is a seductive lie in the survival mindset that says, more stuff equals more safety. For a retiree living in a standard suburban ranch, this belief is often the first step toward disaster. You fill the spare bedroom with buckets of wheat, you likely won't have the energy to grind, and you line your hallways with cases of water. But consider the reality of a slow collapse. When the grid fails, the lights don't just go out. The ambient safety of your home vanishes. Your house becomes a dark, unfamiliar maze. In this environment, you aren't likely to die from starvation in the first week. You are at risk from your own floor plan. When the sun sets at 5 p.m. and your flashlight batteries are conserving power, navigating around stacks of gear becomes a high-stakes physical challenge. Statistically, for a person over the age of 65, a simple fall in the home is more likely to be fatal than a firearm accident or a violent break-in combined. If you have blocked your secondary exits like the sliding glass door or a low bedroom window with essential supplies, you haven't built a fortress. You have inadvertently sealed a tomb. If you suffer a medical episode, EMTs, if they are still running, cannot navigate a horde to reach you. If a candle tips over and starts a fire, you cannot get out. True survival for the elderly isn't about volume, it's about accessibility. A smaller stockpile that allows you to move freely with a walker or cane is infinitely more valuable than a year's supply of food that forces you to squeeze through narrow gaps in the dark. Mobility, not stuff, is your primary survival tool. 2. Over-fortification. After stockpiling, the next logical step for many is to harden the perimeter. We love the idea of an impregnable castle. You might install heavy-duty security doors, complex deadbolts, bars on the windows, or rely on electronic smart locks. It feels like safety. But for an elderly person facing a long-term power outage, this infrastructure often functions less like a shield and more like a containment unit. In a slow collapse, the primary threat to your life is rarely a roving gang of looters. It is an internal crisis, a heart attack, a fall or carbon monoxide poisoning from an improperly vented heater. Here is the chilling operational reality that emergency responders know but rarely advertise. The harder you make it for a criminal to break in, the exponentially higher the probability that you will die alone inside during a medical emergency simply because EMS cannot breach your defenses within the golden hour of survival. Furthermore, consider the mechanics. Many modern security shutters and smart locks default to a fail secure mode when the power dies. If you are weakened by days of heat stress or illness, Do you have the physical strength to manually crank open a steel shutter or force a jammed deadbolt? If you cannot open your fortress from the inside to escape a fire and rescuers cannot open it from the outside to reach you, you haven't secured your home. You have effectively built your own vault. 3. Lack of manual skills. The technology trap. We live in the golden age of automation. For the nearly 54 million seniors in the US, smart home technology isn't just a luxury, it is often the assistive device that allows for independent living. But there is a dangerous downside. We assume that when the grid fails, we can simply switch to manual mode. We forget that manual mode often requires physical leverage that our bodies haven't exerted in decades. The most critical point of failure is your garage door, your primary escape route to the hospital or family. Here is the physics. A standard insulated double garage door weighs between 250 to 400 pounds. In normal operation, a torsion spring counterbalances this weight, allowing even a child to lift it. But springs fatigue and break over time. Here is the engineering secret that traps thousands. Modern electric openers are designed with enough high-torque power to lift a door with a broken spring, completely masking the mechanical failure for years until the power cuts out. You might be living with a broken system right now and not know it. The moment you pull that red emergency release cord during a blackout, you aren't just disconnecting the motor, you are suddenly catching hundreds of pounds of dropping steel. According to the CPSC, over 13,000 Americans suffer garage door-related injuries annually. For a senior with limited lumbar strength or arthritis, this isn't just a heavy lift, it is a permanent seal. You have a working car and a full tank of gas, but you are effectively welded inside your own property by the very convenience meant to serve you. 4. The prepper diet paradox, the water debt. Let's look at your pantry from a logistical perspective rather than a nutritional one. You likely view your shelves of Spam canned chili and freeze-dried beef as a calorie bank account. But in a survival situation where the municipal water pumps have stopped, every single one of those cans comes with a hidden tax that your stockpile probably cannot afford to pay. We call this the water debt. As we age, our kidneys naturally lose about 1% of their filtration efficiency per year after age 40. This means an elderly body requires more water to flush out the same amount of toxins as a younger person. When you consume high-sodium survival foods while rationing your water intake, you are forcing your body into a deficit. Here is the physiological mechanism that catches people off guard. Your body prioritizes sodium balance over hydration, meaning it will aggressively leach water from your own muscle tissue and brain cells to dilute the salt from that survival meal if you don't drink enough fluids. Think about that trade-off. You are eating to gain energy, but the salt content is chemically forcing your body to cannibalize its own hydration reserves to process the meal. The result is not satisfaction, it is cognitive fog. You become confused, lethargic, and prone to making bad decisions like leaving a candle burning or forgetting to lock a door. In a slow collapse, you don't need calories as much as you need a clear head, and your salty stockpile is stealing that from you. 5. Medication dependency, the biological cage. For millions of seniors, independence is contained in those little orange bottles lined up by the coffee maker. You likely worry about running out of your supply, but in a slow collapse, the immediate danger isn't the pill you miss, it's the pill you just took. Consider a summer blackout where your AC dies and the indoor temperature climbs to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. You feel hot, but you aren't sweating much, so you assume you are handling the heat well. You aren't. Here is the medical blind spot: common blood pressure and heart medications, specifically beta blockers and diuretics, chemically inhibit your body's ability to dilate blood vessels and sweat, meaning you can suffer fatal heat stroke at temperatures that would only make an unmedicated person mildly uncomfortable. The medicine keeping your heart stable is simultaneously sabotaging your internal cooling system, turning your own body into a heat trap. To survive this without stopping your medication, which would invite a cardiac event, you must manually take over your body's cooling functions. Since you cannot sweat efficiently, you need to create artificial sweat by constantly wetting your skin with a spray bottle, allowing evaporation to do the work your biology cannot. Furthermore, because diuretics aggressively flush salts, drinking plain water alone can dangerously dilute your blood sodium, leading to confusion. In this scenario, you aren't just drinking for thirst, you are chemically managing a system that can no longer balance itself, requiring electrolytes to keep you clear-headed and alive. 6. Cardio stress failure, the invisible sprint. We tend to think of physical fitness as the ability to hike a mountain, but in a survival scenario, the most dangerous sprint happens while you are standing perfectly still. Imagine you are sitting in your recliner during a blackout when a sudden loud crash echoes from the garage. You don't move a muscle, but your body instantly dumps a massive dose of adrenaline into your bloodstream to prepare for danger. Here is the physiological reality that catches the elderly off guard. In less than 5 seconds, this psychogenic shock can spike a sedentary heart rate to 170 beats per minute, the physiological equivalent of sprinting on a treadmill without your legs ever taking a single step. For a heart with hardened arteries that hasn't seen cardio exercise in years, this sudden demand creates a critical supply crisis. The heart muscle screams for oxygen that your constricted blood vessels cannot deliver. The result isn't a hero moment, it is a drop attack or syncope, where you faint and collapse onto the floor before you can even reach for a flashlight. To survive this, you don't need a gym membership, you need to master the tactical pause. When the alarm bells ring, your first move must be to sit down, not stand up. Force yourself to take deep rhythmic breaths to manually override your autonomic nervous system. You must force your heart rate down from the red zone before you move, ensuring that fear itself doesn't become the weapon that takes you out. 7. The heavy pack fallacy, the spinal trap. The bug-out bag stands as the undisputed icon of preparedness, and you likely have one sitting in your closet right now. It is a tactical backpack stuffed with 3 days of canned food water and tools weighing perhaps 35 or 40 pounds. While it looks reassuring sitting in the corner, this bag transforms from a life raft into an anchor for a senior citizen living in the suburbs. We often make the mistake of testing our gear by simply lifting it in the living room rather than walking with it. Consider the biomechanical reality that ruins these best-laid plans. As we age, our spinal discs naturally lose hydration and height, making them far less resilient. The moment you strap that heavy pack onto an aging back, physics takes over in a brutal way. You naturally lean forward to compensate for the load, and this shift in leverage means that a standard 40-pound pack generates over 120 pounds of compressive force on your lumbar vertebrae with every single step you take. You are effectively crushing your own spine. Within just 500 yards, which is barely the distance to the end of your street, this massive compression can trigger debilitating back spasms or shift your center of gravity enough to cause a catastrophic fall. In a world without functioning hospitals, a broken hip is no longer just an injury. It becomes a terminal diagnosis. Forget the tactical fantasy of hiking through the woods. If you must leave your home because the car won't start, use a rolling suitcase or a sturdy garden cart. It may not look heroic, but keeping the weight on wheels and off your skeleton is the only way to ensure you actually arrive at your destination alive. 8. The reality gap. The blister pack problem. There is a vast and dangerous distance between buying a survival tool and actually possessing the proficiency to use it. We call this the reality gap, and it often sits unnoticed on a shelf in your closet. You likely own a high-quality emergency radio, a box of chem lights, and a propane camp stove, all of which remain sealed in their original theft-proof hard plastic packaging. You feel prepared because you own the solution, but in a sudden grid-down scenario, ownership is not enough. Consider the physiological barrier that turns a minor inconvenience into a nightmare when the power fails and your house plunges into absolute darkness. Your body reacts to this acute stress and fear by spiking cortisol levels and initiating survival vasoconstriction. This instinctive response shunts blood away from your extremities to protect your vital organs, causing you to lose approximately 60% of your fine motor dexterity once your heart rate surpasses 115 beats per minute. This creates what we call the blister pack problem. I have witnessed capable seniors sitting in the freezing dark with a perfectly good heater right next to them, unable to use it simply because they could not tear open the heavy plastic packaging or manipulate the small, fiddly batteries with their numb, shaking hands. If you have never rehearsed changing the batteries in your flashlight with your eyes closed or lighting your stove without reading the manual, you do not have a plan but rather a box of frustrations. The time to break those seals and build muscle memory is now while the lights are on and your hands are steady, ensuring that your gear serves you, rather than fighting you when you need it most. 9. Gear over body. The armor illusion. We often fall into the seductive trap of believing we can purchase our way out of vulnerability. You might have invested thousands of dollars in a high-end rifle, a plate carrier, or heavy-duty tactical boots, believing that this equipment compensates for an aging body. It is a comforting thought to believe that if you look the part of a soldier, you will perform like one, but in a slow collapse, where threats are often environmental rather than tactical. This heavy gear usually becomes a liability rather than an asset. Consider the physiology of a senior citizen living in a suburban home. We often forget that military gear is designed for 20-year-old athletes, not for retirees with reduced bone density or respiratory limitations. Wearing a standard ballistic vest strapped tight enough to be effective restricts your chest wall expansion, which reduces your functional lung capacity by nearly 15% and essentially simulates the symptoms of a mild asthma attack before you even take a single step. This self-imposed breathless state is dangerous when combined with the stress of a crisis. Furthermore, simply holding an 8-pound rifle at the low ready position for just 3 minutes creates enough lactic acid buildup in untrained shoulders to cause significant hand tremors. You aren't becoming a protector, you are exhausting yourself. In a real-world scenario where you need to climb stairs or move quickly to a safe room, that extra weight turns you into a slow, stationary target. The best weapon system you can own is not in your gun safe. It is the cardiovascular ability to move your own body weight without getting winded. 10. Agoraphobia. The bunker mentality. As our physical strength diminishes with age, the outside world can start to feel increasingly hostile. You watch the news, see the riots and the chaos, and you make a silent vow that when the balloon goes up, you are locking the deadbolt and never opening it again. You convince yourself that your neighbors are potential threats and that isolation is your best defense. This is what we call the bunker mentality. And in a slow collapse scenario, it is a psychological trap that kills more seniors than starvation. You might believe that hiding makes you safe, but you are actually cutting yourself off from the only resource that matters when the grid fails community. History gives us a stark warning about this isolation. Sociological studies from the devastating 1995 Chicago heatwave confirmed that the single strongest predictor of survival for the elderly was not wealth, air conditioning, or health, but simply having a social contact who knocked on their door once a day. Those who terrified themselves into isolation died alone behind locked doors, surrounded by supplies they couldn't use. In a suburban outage, your neighbors are not usually the zombie horde depicted in movies. They are your primary source of information barter and physical assistance. If you are afraid to step out onto your porch because you believe the world has gone mad, you miss the critical window where neighborhoods organize to share food and check on the vulnerable. By the time you realize you need help, your silence has taught the street to forget you are even there. 11. Extreme OPSEC, the ghost trap. In the survival community, we are often taught a concept called OPSEC, or operational security, which essentially dictates that you must never reveal your supplies or capabilities to anyone. For a retiree living in a quiet cul-de-sac, this philosophy frequently morphs into dangerous paranoia. You might black out your windows, refuse to answer the door, and intentionally distance yourself from the young family next door to protect your stockpile. You believe you are making yourself a hard target against looters, but you are actually filtering out your primary rescue team. Consider the statistical reality of disaster recovery that Hollywood movies completely ignore. In major urban catastrophes ranging from earthquakes to massive grid failures, over 95% of all successful life-saving rescues in the critical first 24 hours are performed not by uniformed first responders, but by untrained civilian neighbors. If you have spent the last decade strictly practicing extreme OPSEC and isolating yourself, you have effectively removed yourself from the only priority list that matters when the 911 lines go dead. When you inevitably suffer a fall in the dark or need help moving a heavy generator, your silence does not protect you, it erases you. The gray man theory works for moving through a hostile city, but in a suburban slow collapse, being the known neighbor is the only insurance policy that actually pays out when the system fails. 12. The bug-in death cult, the sunk cost trap. We end with the most dangerous psychological trap of all, the refusal to leave. For a senior citizen who has spent 30 years paying off a mortgage and filling a home with memories and supplies, the idea of abandoning it feels like a violation of the soul. You view your home as a fortress, but in a slow collapse, you must recognize the moment your castle becomes a coffin. We often assume that staying home, bugging in, is always the conservative low-risk option. It isn't. Here is the structural reality that creates this trap. Modern suburban homes are designed as active systems that require electricity to breathe. Without it, a sealed energy-efficient house can trap humidity and CO2, creating a stagnant microclimate that chemically induces lethargy and confusion within 48 hours, sedating you into inaction. This is the bug-in death cult. You stay because you have food. You stay because you are afraid of the road. But as the temperature drops and the toilets back up, you fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. You tell yourself, I've invested too much here to leave now. To survive, you must establish a tripwire, a predetermined physical trigger. If the indoor temperature drops below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, or if the toilet stops flushing, when that line is crossed, you must shut off the water, lock the door, and leave not to the woods but to a community shelter or a relative's home. Your survival depends on realizing that your home is just a container. You are the asset worth saving. Survival for those of us with physical limitations, chronic conditions, or dependence is not about becoming a warrior, but rather about becoming a master of our own environment. We have analyzed how a cluttered home can transform into a prison for those with limited mobility, and how a stubborn refusal to evacuate can turn a sanctuary into a tomb for the medically fragile. The common thread running through all 12 mistakes is the dangerous assumption that we can simply muscle our way through a crisis, using strength we no longer possess. True preparedness for the vulnerable is not found in a heavy backpack or a high-sodium meal that spikes your blood pressure. It is found in the wisdom to recognize your biological limits and the courage to build a support network before the lights go out. Your fragility is only a weakness if you pretend it does not exist. So please use your experience to build bridges with your neighbors rather than just barricading your doors. If you take one thing from this discussion, let it be the resolve to define your personal tripwire today. Sit down with your family or a caregiver to decide exactly what condition will trigger you to leave while you still have the strength to do so. Do not wait until the crisis outpaces your physical ability to respond. I want to hear from our community in the comments below. What is the one medical or physical necessity, such as a CPAP machine, a specific medication or climate control, that creates your biggest anxiety when you think about a week without power? Let's share our solutions and support each other. Stay safe, respect your limits, and I will see you in the next one.